Welcome to our community conversations on discovering McCall and the West Central Mountains. I'm Dr. Bryan Williams, president of McCall College, and I'll be serving as moderator of this series. McCall College is a local, specialized college offering meaningful education to students of all ages. The motto of this series is Local Voices Addressing Local Issues. And we want to particularly focus on our newcomers. Many new people are arriving in our region. And we've all discovered that orienting to a rural area in Idaho can be very difficult for many of the people arriving. This series will seek to help newcomers succeed in discovering McCall and our region. Local Voices will seek to offer crucial advice in the discovery process. And we hope even our existing residents will discover something about McCall that they may not have known. It is truly a privilege on this fifth week of our 6 conversations that we have Chief Dallas Palmer, our McCall Police Chief. And he'll be helping us to understand how do we succeed at police interactions. Chief Palmer, welcome.
Yes.
Thank you
Good
for
evening.
taking the time to be with us tonight. And thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
There are a lot of things that people possibly could interact with the police over. Sure. And we look forward to a conversation on exploring some of those. So thanks again. Would you give us a moment and introduce yourself, your family, and why do you enjoy living in McCall?
Yeah, Brian. So again, thank you for having me here. I really appreciate this opportunity to be a part of this. I'm Dallas Palmer. I'm the Chief of Police for the city of McCall, as you had stated. I've been here in McCall since 2010, for almost 12 years here. We moved to McCall, really looking for an opportunity to be a part of a community in Idaho that we felt that we could really get plugged in with and really get involved with. Growing up in northern Idaho in the Coeur d'Alene area, my wife and I decided to come down to here to a similar setting where we felt we could really get involved and be a part of this community that is what I consider kind of a small town Coeur d'Alene. It's a little resort town on the lake that really offers a lot. So here in McCall, my wife and I have 3 children that we raise here in this town. I have a 13-year-old daughter, a 10-year-old son, and a 7-year-old son, just turned 7. So we're very, I would say, active type of people. We love the outdoors here, and we love utilizing what McCall has to offer, and so I think that's a big reason of why we remain here. On top of that, there's our school districts, our health system. There's a lot that I think the city offers that you don't find in other small towns, especially other small towns within Idaho. So I think McCall, for as small as a community as it is, really offers a ton to its citizens and to its tourists. So it's a place that we've decided to call home and really look forward to remaining in.
We're so glad you're here.
Yeah,
you are such a successful part of the culture of McCall. You bring something that I think is wonderfully valuable, and we're sure pleased you're here. Now you've got a new role. I don't know, can we count it in months, or are we still days as to the new police chief in McCall? And so tell us about your role in McCall now, and also what that role will mean and other responsibilities you'll have around the region.
Yeah, sure. So I started here in McCall as a police officer, and throughout the years promoted to the rank of corporal, then sergeant, then lieutenant. Served as our lieutenant for the agency for the past 4 years. Just as of May 30th, was appointed to the position of police chief here. So it's still days. It's not months yet, but getting there. Within this position, I get more opportunity to be the face of our agency, right? So as a lieutenant, I oversaw operations for our department, which is our patrol division and our investigations division. Now, as a police chief, I get to be it's still a part of some of that. I still get to work as a working chief in our community out on patrol at times. Yet I also get to be more the face of our agency, doing things like this, being out, speaking with community members, and really getting a great feel of what our community wants to see out of our police department, and make sure that we're fulfilling that need. On a greater regional aspect, I get to be involved in more of our, I guess, the greater world of law enforcement within Idaho. So attending things like our Idaho Chiefs of Police Conference, which we actually recently held here at the Shore Lodge here in McCall just about a month and a half ago, where we had the opportunity to have over 70, 75 different police chiefs from throughout the state here present with us in McCall, which was a great experience. Along with that, I get to be involved with other agencies within our region, right? And having really just great community interaction with other agency administrators and making sure that we're all working as one team to really fulfill our one mission. So,
where must you serve as far as committees in town? Are you there at the city council, or where would a citizen typically find you?
Sure, yeah. So as a police chief, I certainly do serve as I'm one of our city department heads for different departments within our city. So I do serve, or I'm highly involved within city council and city council meetings every other Thursday, and being present for council to either present and discuss issues or something that we're bringing to the table, or certainly answer questions for council members or from the public that may arise. So outside of those interactions, we look to host more opportunities where we can have public interactions with our community, hosting things like Coffee with a Cop type idea, where we can have open discussions for public to come in and meet our officers, meet our administrators, and just have time to have conversation and build relationships with our community members. So aside from that, it's kind of at the grind in my office, working to see how we can further progress our agency. And so trying to create opportunities to meet individuals and have open office time for those discussions.
Now, how would you prefer that citizens communicate with you? Would you prefer they walk in, talk to somebody, prefer a telephone call, email? What do you sense is the most effective way for citizens to communicate with you?
Sure. I think that's dependent on what the topic is, right? So if it's a citizen concern or something that they want to address, a lot of times that might be something within their neighborhood or something that's a concern surrounding their business. Those interactions are usually best served through an appointment, through a meeting where it can get busy and the day-to-day can fill up pretty quick, right? So being able to schedule things ahead of time through our front office and getting the opportunity to get that name on my calendar to make sure I could set that time aside to meet with that individual is usually the best option. Aside from that, if they just want to introduce themselves and stop by, say, hey, we do get a lot of those that this community's really full of a lot of retired law enforcement from other states or from this state.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of opportunities where individuals stop by and they just want to say, hey, want to introduce themselves, want to give you a little touch of what they did in the past and just touch base and say hi and let you know that we have a very supportive law enforcement type community, right? A community that's very supportive of our profession. And so a lot of those do want to just simply stop by, say hi, introduce themselves, and let us know that they're here to support and they're here to be a part of what we're doing. So.
Now, the police force moved out of the center of town. So for a newcomer
Correct,
who might assume that they would be attached to City Hall or somewhere central, why don't you give us a bit of directions on how they could do that?
Yeah, so in the past, we were right on the backside of City Hall, on the south side of that building there. We now are located off of Dinehard. We're at 550 East Dinehard. We share that building with the Valley County Probation Services. So we are, again, on the south side of that building. It's actually what was our juvenile detention center in the past here for Valley County. Years ago, Valley County decided to do away with that detention center and utilize a larger center down in the Ada County and Canyon County areas. So the city took an opportunity to then where we were in dire need of greater space to move us out and remodel that older facility and put us in a better place. So it's really been a great facility. We're appreciative of having that. So.
And Dinehart is the only light going south.
That's correct. The traffic light on the south end of town.
That's all we have.
Head east from there and you'll find us.
That's wonderful. What is the most important issue concerning newcomers that you would like to address?
Man, overall, I think just being prepared for residing in this area and learning the little nuances of how to reside in this area. You know, some people come to here from that aren't familiar with snow, right? Aren't familiar with winter. Come from an area that isn't snow country. So, preparing yourself to learn how to operate a motor vehicle in the snow, right? To make sure that you can safely drop your child off at school day to day, right? Or safely go over to the grocery store, safely drive down the canyon to Boise. Things where just simply preparing yourself and making sure that you learn how to function within this sort of environment in a safe manner, I think is a big part of that.
Is there a place that you could practice that? Because my first instinct is I think if I were to practice my vehicle performance in the snow, I'd probably go over to the high school parking lot. Is that acceptable, or is there a place that you can sort of practice?
Yeah, so I think if you're just wanting to operate your vehicle in a safe manner, right, and you're not out spinning cookies and donuts and sliding all over the place, yes, driving in a lawful manner within an empty parking lot is a great place, right? Okay. Practicing, that's even outside of snow-related driving, right? That's when you're teaching your kid how to drive, practicing backing into a parking spot or parallel parking or avoiding some sort of, obstacle that might arise, right? So yeah, parking lots, open space where there's opportunity for air without causing damage is always a plus, right?
Now, are you thinking of a story of a newcomer that sort of might illustrate this particular problem? Is there anyone that comes to mind?
As far as a specific story, shoot, I don't know. I mean, we consistently see the newcomers are kind of, and it's not just newcomers, right? There's us that have been here a long time that still make those mistakes and have those slip ups. But the slide offs are kind of the constant, right? Where you have the guys that just simply that are maybe going too fast, right? Or they just simply don't realize that tires actually matter in the wintertime, right? Not just summer, but also in the winter. And making sure you have the proper traction to keep your vehicle on the roadway is important. So a lot of the newcomer issues are more so just the slide off. So where they're missing a target and they're sliding off the roadway when they're trying to change lanes or they're trying to make a left-hand turn, right?
Let me tell my story.
Okay.
I was coming down Mission Hill, wanting to turn left and go to the hospital. I was on my 4th year of my snow tires, and I said, I can do it one more year. I can do it one more year. And as I proceeded to make that left-hand turn, I was in the snowbank. Well, a little later that day, I was at our tire stores buying my next set of tires. So it's a really serious issue to try and make sure your vehicle's ready. For what's coming at us in this environment.
And knowing that minor investment can really save you a lot, right? As far as either harm to yourself or others or damage to your personal property or others.
Now, the really good news is I've never had a problem in this town like that slide off. And I had a truck and a guy standing beside me in less than a minute. It's sort of an amazing part of our culture. It isn't just the police that will respond and give assistance, but there really is a culture of assistance in our community. And it surprised me. I've spent most of my time in urban environments. And so do you find that when you're on an accident scene, you're seeing that culture as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been in those situations myself where you have people stopping wanting to help, right? And we certainly see it when we're on an accident. We don't have a giant amount of resources within a police department here in McCall, right? And so there's times where citizens are certainly willing to try to help out when they're seeing the need out there, right? And you also have those citizens who are certainly excited to hook a tow strap up to a vehicle and rip another vehicle out, right? So, no, we do have a very willing and helpful community here. That's a lot of really great people.
It really is part of the culture.
Yeah, for sure.
But there is a lot of friction between the newcomers and the locals.
Okay.
Can you give us your sense on what's the cause of that friction, and if there's a suggestion on how it might be minimized?
Yeah, I don't know if I would. I guess I could see it classified as friction. I don't see it as much as friction as much as it's maybe just resistance, right? And so I think we have a local base here, especially a base who's been here for a long time, grown up here, and wants McCall to remain as it was, how it was when they were a child. And they don't like seeing the change. So I think maybe along with the newcomer, they see that's change, right? Or that's more of a influx and increase of population here within the area. So it's changed from what they had as a child. And they don't want to see that. So I do see where there's some that are certainly resistant to some of that growth. I think we have a lot of our community who is understanding that growth, when you live in a beautiful place like this, and it becomes known that growth is going to take place. People want to be here, and we've seen a lot of that, especially throughout the past couple of years, right? With the COVID influence and people being able to go work remotely, really making those choices to come reside in a better quality of life area, right? So I think we do have a great part of our population that understands that and simply just wants to grow appropriately and wants to try to keep as much of McCall as what they've known it as in the past, right? So I think, like I say, outside of rather than being friction, more so just the resistance of that change, right? And not wanting to see things become different here.
Is there a sense that you would advise a newcomer to sort of handle that? Because they will feel that.
Sure. I can see where people, kind of feel that they're, I guess, maybe pushed aside or maybe not received as well. Yet we do have it's a very kind community, right? A very friendly type community. So I think most of our community does want people to feel involved. They want them to fit in, and they're willing to help in that. So I think I would advise people, you're moving here, you're coming to this beautiful place for what it is, and that to come in and plug yourself in, become a part of the community, and understand that people really, really do respect this place. This place means a lot to them. And so show that same respect, right? Come in and treat this place the way our locals want this place to be treated. Treat it in a respectful manner where generations for years are going to be able to enjoy this place.
Thank you. Yeah, that answer is appreciated. Let's go to your role as the police chief.
Sure.
Help us define our police force. What are its facilities? And I think you've covered that a little bit.
Yeah.
But what are its extended resources, such as our jail capacity?
Yeah. So our department at McCall PD is basically, we have a total staff of 15 individuals. Okay. Within that 15, we have 12 sworn personnel, right? So of our sworn personnel, you have a chief of police, you have a lieutenant, you have an investigator. And then in our patrol side of the department, you have 2 sergeants, 2 corporals, and 5 police officers. We also have our support services personnel, which is our records clerks, our evidence technicians. We only have 2 of those, so they work hard. They have a lot going on. They also kind of work a twofold position where they are our front desk individuals as well, and oversee kind of the front end of our operation. So if you were to come to the department, and knock there at the front window, you're going to be greeted by one of our support services staff. You also have our code enforcement officer who handles all of our city code, city ordinance stuff. So that would be your, dog at large stuff, dog licensing stuff, any sort of, complaints of one neighbor maybe coming across a property line onto the fence was built in the wrong place and it kind of egress over type deal, or snow shedding onto someone's property, or depositing snow in the wrong place, those sorts of things. So we deal with a lot of those sort of calls too, especially within the winter time.
So is the code enforcement person an officer?
It's not a sworn position, no.
Okay.
So, and by sworn, I mean they would have peace officer powers, right? Okay. So no, not a sworn position. She is a civilian position that simply enforces code out in the field. So she's more of our really specific to city ordinance stuff. So along with all those animal complaint issues, the parking violations, those sorts of things. Yeah.
And help us with the jail situation. Now we've got a funky story about jails in this town, but that isn't our jails.
Right.
I think you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. So
tell us about jails in this town. We get in trouble.
The way Idaho is set up for detention facilities, those are operated by the sheriff's departments, right? So here in McCall, we don't operate a detention facility. We don't have a jail. That's operated by the Valley County Sheriff's Department. And that's located down in Cascade. So it's about 30 to 45 minutes south of here, right, depending on the weather. And so that's part of our, kind of relates into our staffing type situation, right, where if we're only running 2 officers on a Thursday evening and we have an arrest taking place or what we call an in custody, and we're transporting that person down to jail, that takes that officer out of the game for, 2 to 3 hours by the time paperwork gets completed down at the jail and you make the drive back and forth. So staffing's, it's important to have our staffing minimums met where we can have officers available to respond accordingly. So
I didn't hear anything about our funky jail here in McCall.
Yeah,
we have a funky jail. Now, you aren't going to use that funky jail.
No,
I want you to define where it is.
That's a funny deal.
So the story is.
Yeah, to my understanding, for those who know where Hometown Sports is or Memorial Park, it's right back behind there, and it's kind of, it's actually from the alleyway that runs behind Hometown Sports is where you can access it. And I still believe they open that up. The Parks Department, I believe it is, will open it up once a year for people to kind of check out. But it was a single cell facility. I believe the other side of it was for detention staff or an officer to stop by and hang out in occasionally. But I believe that came into play shortly after the Great Depression when they were dealing with issues with community members with alcohol issues or whatnot. And so they needed a facility more so as what we consider like a drunk tank, right? A holding tank when someone's consumed too much alcohol and they need a place to go sleep it off, go relax, and make sure that that's done in a safe manner. And so that's what that facility was. And I believe, I could be incorrect, but I believe it was used up until the late 60s, early 70s. It was used for quite a long time. And it was officers stopping by and stoking the wood stove and keeping an inmate warm. So.
Oh, my goodness. Now, McCall used to have juvenile detention facilities.
Correct.
Now, that has gone away. What happens to our kids when they get in trouble?
Yeah, so most of your juvenile crimes, from the Juvenile Crimes Act that's come out years ago, there's less of a desire to place juveniles into custody, right? Those situations certainly still arise with major, like violent, felonious type offenses from juveniles. When those take place, we then transport a juvenile down to Ada County Juvenile Detention Facility.
Okay.
Yep, or down over to Canyon County, which is located there, like Caldwell area.
Now, if
right?
your two officers are on a 4-hour trip or
Yeah.
a 5-hour trip.
Yeah, you're calling some other additional units in
yeah.
to take care of those things for sure.
And a bit on the coordination. You didn't say 9/11, so I'm assuming that's not here. That's somewhere else. So that means there's coordination of the police facilities. So how do you coordinate with your county sheriff's officers as well as the state police? How does that happen?
So are you talking from a detention aspect or from our patrol aspect and how we work together?
And management of situations in the community.
Yeah, so we actually meet monthly. I meet with our either the Valley County Sheriff or their captain, and then with a captain from Idaho State Police and our county prosecutor. We have Fish and Game actually involved in that conversation. There's other, like our Forest Service law enforcement individuals. So there's kind of a bunch of players within the community that are involved in those conversations. But we meet monthly to make sure that we maintain great rapport, that we maintain great relationships with one another, and that we're working together in an appropriate manner, right? And so sometimes I think things can arise, especially in the field, that can create a little bit of friction. So we make sure that we can minimize those issues and we can have, maintain those great relationships and really work together. Here in McCall, people certainly do have to understand that we're an agency of 12 sworn, like I was saying, right? So when major incidences arise, you don't always have all the numbers and resources you need to address a situation, right? So we had something as minor as a little explosive incident about 2-3 weeks ago. And we don't have a bomb squad here, right? We don't have the resources to properly transport explosive like devices. So that's where we reach out to our partners at Boise Police, right? And request their bomb squad come assist us, and they'll provide us a bomb tech and be involved. So Idaho does a really, really great job of understanding that rural communities need to be supported by our larger agencies within the state. And so we work together really well on maintaining those relationships and making sure that we're there to help each other out and keep our communities safe.
Thank you. Are we missing anything in our police department? Because we're obviously small.
Yeah.
Where have there been corners cut, or what's missing?
Yeah. So when was that? Probably 6-7 years ago. One spot that had been removed was a school resource officer position. Something that the current chief at the time felt just wasn't as much of a necessity, as well as the past school superintendent at that time. And so that position was done away with. That's a position that we desperately need back. That's something that we need to have, especially with this day and age in law enforcement and the way the profession is seen throughout the nation. It's an area where we can really have great interaction with the youth within our community, build great relationships with our younger community members, and really have influence at a young age, right? At that middle school age, well into that high school age, right? And so that's a position that we desperately need to have back. We also are growing, right? And so our school district's growing. We've heard our superintendent talk about that quite a bit in the past, right? And along with that means we have a greater need for juvenile crimes investigations, right? We have, which is a lot of what that school resource officer does. He takes care of incidents within the schools, as well as other juvenile crimes taking place throughout our community. So, and it creates those relationships where you have students who have the trust and confidence in that individual to actually share information. And there's the great majority of those kids who want the best, for themselves, for their friends, for their younger siblings coming up through the programs, right? And so they want to have someone who can be a confidant, who can be someone that they can open up to and discuss issues with, and really be able to, I think, create the place that they want to see for themselves, right? So,
do we have a canine unit?
We do not here in McCall.
Interesting.
That's something that I think we could certainly look towards bringing aboard. We had it years and years ago. It's something that is, it can be costly, and you have to have the right officer. You have to have the right family situation, right, to be able to, have that environment, have that sort of living arrangement at home, right, where it works well. And so I don't see us so much needing what we call a bite dog, right, that's going out and apprehending criminals. But as far as a narcotics dog, we could certainly utilize for some of those narcotic-like issues here in town.
Excellent.
Yeah.
What laws and enforcement tactics might surprise a newcomer?
Yeah, I think something that people can be surprised by is our slow speed limits at times, right? Yeah. We are a very outdoor-like community, right? So we have a lot of community members as well as tourists here who utilize the bike paths, utilize the sidewalks, utilize our roadway system to commute through town outside of just operating a motor vehicle, sure. Right? And we're a very residential-like community, so our speed limits are slow. We're a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit throughout the majority of town. The only area outside of that is the bypass off of Dinehard and Boydston, right? Mm-hmm. That kicks up to 35. So that's really it, unless you're leaving town on the highways, right? So I think sometimes people, if they're not paying attention and they're not familiar with the area, they can certainly be surprised by how fast they're going at times. And our cars these days travel in a very smooth manner, right? That you're not bumping along like you were in the past. So I think that's part of it. I think people just needing to pay attention, pay attention to those traffic signs, pay attention to those speed limit signs, making sure that they're operating their vehicles in a safe manner to keep our community members safe would be excellent.
So if a newcomer gets pulled over,
Yeah.
what would your sense of their expectations be, and how do you do it differently, or do you do it similarly to other police forces? Is there
Yeah, sure.
anything, the way you handle those situations, that might be McCallian?
I would say I'm sure we handle it very similar to other agencies out there, and then also, very different from some agencies. You'll find that some people that you stop, they're surprised to be simply educated on what the speed is, and that they're not receiving a citation all the time, right? That they might be receiving a verbal or written warning and being told, hey, we just simply need the change in behavior. We need you to slow down a little bit and operate in a more safe manner. Certain people from, other areas are very shocked by that, right? They always expect that I'm getting a ticket if I get stopped type thing. That being said, there's certainly those that will earn a citation through their driving behavior, right? If you're operating in that reckless manner, or if you're flying past, the kid on the bike type thing, that's going to be addressed differently, right? And so we do hold people accountable, and they need to understand that. But at the same time, we do operate in a very educational type enforcement, right?
So the incentives for your officers is to change the behavior, as opposed to any financial incentives that might be used in other police forces.
Yeah, we at the local city side of things don't receive those funds, right, from those citations. Okay. So it is.
No fine. No.
There might be a minimal. It's like a $1 or $2 type deal. I'd have to look at the court fees to know that exactly, but it's very minimal if there is any. Really, what we're looking for is simply the change in behavior, right? And that's the intention of a citation, right? If an officer believes that driver is going to operate appropriately and change that behavior simply by the interaction and the warning, then that's excellent, right? If the officer has maybe warned that individual in the past and knows that, hey, the behavior's not changing, it's time to issue a citation to hopefully get some awareness and get that behavior to change, then that may help happen as well. Yeah.
We're now emerging from the pandemic. At least we're in a different phase of the pandemic, which we're all trying to understand in a better way. I know some of our local businesses have returned to high. We've heard that the community is now rated as high in its pandemic transmission.
Okay.
So I'm wondering how the police force at this stage in the pandemic is handling it. And are there any markers that you're using to sort of say, when we get here, we're going to do this, or we're not going to do this? Is there any suggestions you can make for how?
Yeah. So there was the city kind of does that together as a whole, right? Is how the city wants to respond, and whether we maintain, open offices, or we close things back down and go to appointment only type things, right? So when the pandemic first began, right, and there was a lot of unknown. There was, how much impact is this going to have? How much does this really affect all these different individuals? From our law enforcement response, things certainly changed, right? There was a moment there where maybe everyone who, unless they were violent criminals that we knew we had to get in custody, maybe they were simply being cited and released, right? And not always transported to jail because of the detention facility concerns, right? Where they weren't accepting everyone, which became quite the norm throughout the state, and I would assume the nation as well. There was also, our response on scene to stuff where if it was something that we could address in the front yard, we may ask the individual to come outside and talk to us outside and try to keep some distance and keep our officers healthy and safe, right? If we could address it over the phone, that was taking place at times as well. That being said, if there was incidents that needed our intervention, we were certainly there to protect serve our community and enter in and take care of situations when we needed to do so. So as of right now, last I was looking at things, Valley County was still sitting at a low measure of COVID as of, that was just last Wednesday, last week. So I know we've had this additional increase, but right now we're kind of sitting very similar to where we were like beginning of July last year. So I'm hoping that we can keep talking as this being the toward the end of our pandemic, right? And that we can curve back down and this whole thing goes away and we can get back to just normal living again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a great goal for all of us.
Yeah.
Many of the people that come here are coming from urban environments, and the police forces are different in the urban environments just because of the nature of the living environment. So as an urban person arrives in our town, what's the difference between rural and urban citizens, and how does one shift from an urban environment with its interaction with the police force to a rural environment in which you sense you would like your officers to act like?
Yeah, I think our officers here in this sort of rural setting are certainly willing to communicate and build relationships with our community members, right, and have conversations. So I think there's opportunity, maybe more opportunity for discussion, and that might not be. They might not have that opportunity all the time in an urban setting where officers are jumping from call to call to call to call, where they're just simply responding, handling a situation, they're gone. Where we might have the extra second to get to hang out, conversate with the individual, really learn what the situation is that they're dealing with, maybe get to the heart of the problem and resolve it appropriately so that we're hopefully not coming back to resolve another issue, right? Aside from that, I think between the urban and rural type citizen, I think it's just simply being prepared, right? I think when you reside within an urban setting, within a city-like setting, there's things that can arise where you might be able to run over to the store and pick up whatever you may need, right? To maybe the power's out, right? And you can go grab the gasoline, you can go grab the propane, or you can shoot over and get dinner, or maybe you just have simply more opportunity where you don't have to be as prepared. Here, I think in a more rural setting, you have to understand that preparation certainly matters, right? That you can't always just shoot down the highway to go pick up what you need. Sometimes the highway's closed. Sometimes it's not an option, right?
Right.
So I think there's just simply that preparation side of things. Excuse me. I also think the type of response, right? When you're talking from officers responding, here in McCall, we're 7.5 square miles. We're a small city, right? And so our officers, our response time is usually pretty quick, right? We're usually able to get there appropriately and in a fast manner. That's not always the case, right? Sometimes we might have an officer who transports someone 40 minutes south to Cascade, and on their way back, if another officer's tied up, it might take a little bit longer for that officer to come take care of your call. And so having an understanding that there could be more of a time delay at times, right? Also an understanding of you may have to take care of yourself and be prepared to take care of yourself for a little bit longer than what you may have had to do elsewhere, right? Where that response might be a bit more delayed at times.
One of the things I see as a difference is that there's more guns present in our community than I saw in urban environments. And that may have changed, but how do you as a police officer and a teacher of your police officers guide them in handling weapons that they're going to see fairly often, or these newcomers? They're going to see guns more often. Any suggestions?
So we treat it as everyone has a gun, right? This is Idaho, so we expect that they have firearms, right? And so when we're training our new staff, we expect that they have one, if not more, firearms, right? So here in Idaho, to come across a firearm isn't unexpected. It's not shocking, right? We do deal with incidents where you're placing an individual under arrest and he might be armed and might have a firearm attached to his waistband at that time. So that can create some issue in getting that person into custody in a safe manner and removing possibly a loaded firearm off of that individual, right? So we certainly do some training and make sure our staff is educated appropriately in addressing those situations. But this is Idaho. This is certainly people who are proud of that Second Amendment right, and they want to carry their weapons and have their weapons. So we certainly expect it.
Thank you. There's been a lot of interest nationally on police training and their response to various situations. What should newcomers be aware of in a rural or resort situation when it comes to that type of response?
I think here in a rural setting, some of the things we're seeing nationally is the response of, the major incident type stuff, right? The riot type stuff, the stuff that's going beyond just a civil, protest type thing. So I think we've been very fortunate here. We're not dealing with a lot of those issues. We do have people who operate in a very civil manner and hold their signs at times and want to convey their message in a lawful manner, and that's great. That's excellent, right? And we're supportive of that. That being said, we do train our officers to be able to address situations appropriately. Yet our resources are a bit minimized here at times, right? So some major incidents, we certainly call out to our state police partners or other agencies to assist in addressing some of those.
Let's take it into the schools, because our schools have certainly been a place where there's been a lot of criticism of police response. If there was an active shooter in our community, how would our police be trained to respond to an active shooter setting?
Yeah, so we train, we hold what we call active shooter training, usually on a minimum of an annual basis. This past fall, we had a training that we did with McCall PD and McCall Fire Department of a full, incident taking place within one of our school settings. Law enforcement responding, triaging the minimal stuff that we can do, right? We're looking to go stop a threat and to get a situation, or what we call like a code 4, or to a safe setting where we can hopefully get medical personnel into there to evac people out and get them to the proper hospitals or the proper medical care for, triaging our true casualty or our true wounded at that time. So we certainly do prepare. We certainly do train our staff and work together to do that. We need to do that more. We want to do that more. We've had conversations recently with our Valley County Sheriff's Office partners who certainly want to do that more together as well. And so we're working out organizing some of that so we can get together and do more of that training to make sure that we can respond appropriately. But while we don't have what you would call like a tactical response team or a SWAT team here in McCall, we do send our PD officers to training with Caldwell SWAT. And we do SWAT training where our officers are trained with their staff to understand how to respond to major type incidents, right? And how we can breach doors, how we can make entry into areas to rescue those that we need to go intervene for.
Is that extra equipment such as shields or long guns, is that fairly available to our officers?
Yes, so we do have shields, ballistic shields. We also have, all of our officers are equipped with long guns. And so we certainly do. McCall's done a great job of spending on necessary equipment, right? And funding appropriately to our law enforcement and making sure that we can respond appropriately. And so, yeah, we are well equipped to be able to take care of those situations. Excellent. So the only area that we lack in that sort of setup is truly, the numbers with resources, right? Having enough staff at times. So that's where we rely on our partnering agencies to jump in and work on these things together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How do our police serve in this community in areas beyond the police force, or even where you could also help us with where they serve as officers? But I think we're fascinated with where do they serve?
Yeah, sure. So as officers, they get, we're involved in community events, things as trunk or treat, or maybe a coat giveaway type thing where we can be out there and have greater positive interactions with our community members, right? We really look forward to that. Outside of the uniform aspect, right, and simply being community members, we have many of us who are involved. I get the opportunity to coach hockey and be involved in our youth hockey community. My kids play hockey, and so we've gotten highly involved in that manner. And it's a great opportunity to be involved with our community and be involved with the youth within our community, right? And so things like that, that where officers can be involved in more of a non-uniform type aspect, right? We have one of our, basically it's called ARCON, but it's our arrest techniques and our defensive tactics type stuff that we train for our officers. One of our instructors helps out occasionally training women for a self-defense course here in the area, right? That are interested in, how can we help better protect ourselves? And so having one of our own who's willing to spend that time and effort to, help educate those individuals on how they can remain more safe, I think is an excellent thing and great community involvement.
Excellent. Yeah. Now I'm going to sort of settle in on this hockey stuff because this town has become a really quality hockey community. And I have noticed that you are more than involved at all levels. You're not only coaching, I think all three of your kids are involved in hockey. And I've heard word that your kids have done pretty well in their hockey. So what's it mean to have to be a hockey town? And because that might be new to a newcomer. What's a hockey town like, and what would you like for folks to know about the hockey scene here?
Yeah, I think it would start with the fact that this town, especially the hockey community, is incredibly, I think, blessed to have this giant, incredible ice rink, right? For a town of our size to have the facility that we have is truly incredible. You don't see that elsewhere, and it's really one of the greatest rinks, certainly within this Northwest region, right? So that gives us a great opportunity to grow hockey within this community, right? We have a lot of people that want to come play hockey here, both adults and youth, right? That want to travel to this area. It's a beautiful setting. It's a place that they want to come be at. So that helps. Really, the biggest part of that program, the reason we're so involved in it, is the other members of that program, right? We have, it's just phenomenal people that really, it's amazing the amount of time that they dedicate to youth in our community, right? They're working to make them a better hockey player, right? Creating better edge work, better stick handling, a better shooter, but more than anything, they're creating better humans, right? They're really working to help these people just become greater individuals overall. And I think team sport does that in a really incredible way, right? And so, yeah, I think that's a big part of hockey's grown here a lot over the past, I think, 6, 7, 8 years. Unfortunately, we lost our juniors team a few years back, right? Or even longer than that now, 5 years ago, I think. But hopefully something like that comes back into play. I know there's been conversation of bringing something back, which is great. It's great recruitment for the association, I think, and it's a great community event for people to come and be a part of. Hockey's a fun sport.
Thank you. If I could give you a magic wand, and you could go anywhere in our community, what would you wish for?
Man, this town offers so much. I think, like I say, we're so fortunate with what we already have, and so it's hard to wish for something, I think, greater and beyond. However, if I could, it would be that housing issue. I think it would be, one of my greatest challenges as a police chief is simply recruitment and retention of our staff, right? And we've had people that have left in the past simply because it appears it's just completely not an option to purchase a home here. Working as a police officer, or you hear it working, as a teacher, or other professions within this community where our housing market has just exploded, right? And so if you're not already in, it's really difficult to become established. And so if I had a magic wand, if we could increase the supply of housing available for purchase, that would be phenomenal. That'd be huge.
As we come to a close of our conversation, I'd like to give you an opportunity to just summarize what you really feel are the key points that you would like newcomers to know as they arrive in our community.
Yeah, I think the big thing is the preparation, right? You're coming to a place where, when I first moved here, I met a gal who was a super sweet lady who said she was out doing some stuff in her yard and was a neighbor that we were talking with. And she said, well, McCall, and this was in the summertime. She goes, McCall, it's either winter or preparing for winter, right? And so I think there's a lot of reality to that, right? The simple known of, if I have a wood stove, how many cords of wood am I going to burn through this year, right? If I'm driving in the snow, like we talked earlier, how do I properly equip my vehicle? How do I plan for being stuck somewhere and having those proper safety measures already setting within my vehicle so I can maybe be stuck somewhere on the highway for a few hours and still be okay. So being prepared as a newcomer is huge. And building that neighborly relationship, right? You can go to that neighbor and say, hey, what do I need to do? Right? Be friendly, have the conversations. We have, though some may be resistant to some of that influx and some of that change, it's still a really incredible group of people. And they're incredibly intelligent, especially when it comes to that sort of thing, right? And they've been through it. The whole "there's no better teacher than experience" thing, they've experienced it, right? And so they have a great understanding of it. So reach out to your neighbor, have the conversations, and be respectful to that neighbor. I think that's a huge thing.
Wonderful
Huge thing.
summary.
Yeah.
This is live. This is live television. Was there? Would you like to amend anything that you said? Are you comfortable? We just don't want to leave it. If there's something you sense that you might be a little uncomfortable with, are you okay with our conversation?
No, I think
tonight?
I'm fine with our conversation. Yeah, and I appreciate the dialogue and the conversation back and forth for sure.
May I thank you. You are extraordinarily busy.
Yeah.
May I thank you for coming out tonight and giving this gift to not only our newcomers, but to our existing residents, because for some of them, this may be their first opportunity of getting to know you. And so thank you for that investment in your community tonight. We so appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bryan.
And thank you for allowing us to come into your settings and for watching our McCall College Community Conversations on discovering McCall and trying to help our newcomers to succeed. This series is sponsored by a grant from the Idaho Community Foundation's Shelton Foundation, which supports Valley County. There are recordings of each of these series, and this conversation tonight will be available to you on YouTube, /McCall College, all one word. And so this conversation, we would certainly suggest you encourage your neighbors and any newcomers to support. Please subscribe to receive other notifications of future conversations. Next Thursday at 7 p.m., Nettie Kay, my wife, and I will talk about succeeding in McCall's moral culture. I'm a social ethicist. I'm a professional in assessing moral culture, and Nettie Kay is an art instructor here in our community. We will try and summarize all of these spring conversations and help you understand our community. We would love it if you would join us next week as we try and close off our series with helpful comments that you, your neighbors, and any newcomers could help. Please invite your friends, and especially those newcomers, to watch. Until next week, discover more about McCall and the wonderful West Central Mountains. I'm Dr. Bryan Williams, president of McCall College. Thank you for watching.